الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So as we continue discussing the book بلوغ مرام من أدلة الأحكام by Hafiz Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, where in this particular book that he collected a hadith that relates to ahkam al-halal and haram and ibadat. So as we continue discussing this hadith, and we're still in the bab of kitab at-tahara, and he put into sub chapters, and of those chapters nawaqil al-wudu. So we had started this discussion regarding of those things that he mentioned as nawaqil al-wudu, those acts that will invalidate a person's wudu. And we have mentioned the first hadith, the hadith of Anas bin Malik, regarding of those things that he mentioned that if those things were to occur, it nullifies one wudu. So he mentioned the first hadith of Anas bin Malik that discussed concerning the matter regarding an-nawm. Does sleeping nullify one's wudu or not? And we had mentioned regarding that matter that the ulama, they have around eight aqwal, 8 different views on that topic, on that discussion. So you have various discussion. So of the discussion I mentioned, al-kathir, ينقل الوضوء of the ulama will mention that they state if one sleep kathir, and kathir meaning istagrak, the person like in deep sleep, so the person is sleeping where he's out, then this nullify the person wudu. Wa qalil, but the person have a quick nap, then this does not nullify his wudu. So that's to clarify. So those are the things that they discuss regarding concerning sleep, and Allahu alam that that particular position regarding sleeping for the person is completely out, then the person nullifies his wudu, and if it's a nap, then the person wudu is not invalid. So we're going to pick up from what we have left off. We discussed the hadith that follows, which is the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, that also discusses of those matters that are considered to be things that nullify one wudu. So also, as we had mentioned before, of the general guiding principle regarding acts that are said to be nullifiers of one wudu, then it requires for a person to bring evidence. It's not based upon just a person's opinion or practice of the people, but rather it is based upon dalil. So to say something nullify one wudu, then a person have to bring some form of evidence, credible evidence, to prove such a point. So inshallah ta'ala we'll discuss the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha regarding this discussion, and take the benefit and the ruling that can be extracted from it. So the hadith will be read, and then we'll cover the hadith. تفضل.
Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Chapter 6, the nullifiers of wudu. Hadith 63, narrated Aisha radiallahu anha. Fatima bin Abu Hubaysh came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, O Messenger of Allah, I am a woman whose blood keeps flowing even after the menstrual period. I am never purified. Should I therefore abandon the prayers? He, the Prophet, said, no, that is only for blood from a vein, and is not menstruation. So when the menstruation comes, abstain from prayers, and when it ends, wash your blood from yourself and then pray. Agreed upon. Al-Bukhari has then performed ablution for every prayer. Muslim indicated that he dropped this addition deliberately.
So that's the hadith that is mentioned of those hadith that discuss concerning ahkam al-nawaqil al-wudu, and the hadith that has been mentioned. And Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu anha قالت جاءت فاطمة بنت أبي حبيش رضي عنها إلى النبي عليه السلام فقالت يا رسول الله. So she said, يا رسول الله إني امرأة أستحاض فلا أطهر أفأدع الصلاة؟ قال لا، إنما ذلك عرق وليس بحيض، فإذا أقبلت حيضك فدعي الصلاة، وإذا أدبرت فاغسلي أنك الدم ثم صلي. متفق عليه. وللبخاري ثم تودعي لكل صلاة. وأشار مسلم عليه رحمة الله إلى أنه حذفها عمدا. So that's the hadith that been mentioned here by Imam Ibn Hajar rahimahullah regarding those matters pertaining to a hadith relating to nawaqil al-wudu. So as we discussed the hadith, and Aisha rad anha being the narrator of this hadith, or this story that occurred regarding that Umm al-Mu'mineen Aisha radiallahu anha, that Fatima bint Abi Hubaysh, that she came to the Prophet ﷺ and she questioned matter regarding the istihada, are having continuous blood flow, and what's the ruling pertaining to that. So that's concerning of those things that will be discussed. So the first of the things that they mentioned is we'll start regarding takhrij of the hadith. So this hadith, we have a takhrij of the hadith. So as for what is mentioned regarding concerning the source of this hadith, that they mentioned the hadith, the first hadith. So there's like two hadith or one hadith in two parts. So there's one hadith in two parts. The hadith of Aisha, which is the hadith, but you have some additional wording that is said by Imam Bukhari, but of the wording of the hadith that is agreed upon between Bukhari and Muslim, even though this narration is that of Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah. So the hadith mentioned them, the first part of the hadith that I mentioned, muttafaqun alayh. So muttafaqun alayh mean the hadith is narrated by Imam Bukhari, and also the hadith is collected by Imam Muslim, alayhi rahmatullah ta'ala. So they mentioned regarding a Sheikh Al-Fahl, that he mentioned regarding takhrij of the hadith, he mentioned of the source of this hadith, or of those who have narrated this hadith, he mentioned akhrajahu Abdul Razak, yani wal Humaydi, Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, wa Ibn Majah, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, Darakutni, Bayhaqi. So of the sources that that he have mentioned, that have narrated or collected this hadith from the books of hadith, he mentioned Abdul Razak, Al Humaydi, Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, Darakutni, and Bayhaqi. And you can somewhat mention this order based upon the time of their death. So the one who have done the tahqiq of this particular Bulugh al-Maram, Sheikh Mahir Al-Fahl, that he mentioned concerning the books or the sources based upon the time of death of those. So the ones who are earlier, they will be mentioned first. So Abdul Razak, Humaydi, who was one of the shuyukh of Imam Bukhari. Also then he mentioned Al-Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah, At-Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, Darakutni, Bayhaqi. So those are of the sources that I mentioned this hadith. So you have other sources that I've mentioned this hadith. So again, others have mentioned that in line with what has been mentioned by the author, Bukhari and Muslim. So starting first with Bukhari and Muslim, as Ibn Hajar rahimahullah mentioned, muttafaqun alayh. So starting with the sources that have been mentioned by Ibn Hajar rahimahullah. So the hadith in the Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, Nasa'i, Ibn Majah. Also others mention Malik, that some book does not mention At-Tirmidhi. Some source, as the Sheikh Mahir, he mentioned Tirmidhi. Some does not include At-Tirmidhi, so it means something to be looked into. So sometimes, as we said, comparing of different books is that to see what are the ones that are common and the ones that are the ones that maybe others might mention, others that may miss, and to see what's the reasonable reason for this. So some mention At-Tirmidhi, and I mention the hadith is 125, but others who have made takhrij of the hadith, they do not mention At-Tirmidhi. So they do not mention At-Tirmidhi. So that is something that requires one to look into further. And as we said before, that this lesson is not per se for beginners. So this lesson is not per se for, yes, beginners can listen and may benefit, but this lesson is meant for those who have a higher level of intermediary and above. So as we said that in comparison of those who have made takhrij of this hadith, that you might find some may mention certain sources that others may not. Some of those sources at times, especially concerning from Mina Kutubu Sitta, if some are mentioned that Sheikh Mahir, he mentioned Kutubu Sitta, Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, Ibn Majah, Tirmidhi, and Nasa'i, that is Kutubu Sitta. Others does not include At-Tirmidhi with this hadith. So it's something that requires to be looked into further regarding why some mention At-Tirmidhi and others did not. So other sources I mentioned, you have the hadith in Ibn Hibban, Al-Baghawi, Ibn Jarud, and others who have mentioned this hadith. So you have other sources that mention hadith. So overall the hadith is muttafaqun alayh, that it is authentic, and this particular wording is that of Imam Bukhari. So the wording of this hadith is found with Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. Then he mentioned, Walid Bukhari, and to Bukhari rahimahullah, may have an additional wording, ثم تودعي لكل صلاة. That he mentioned that for the lady who's mustahadha, that she should perform salat, perform wudu for each salat. And as they said, this is the maw'ida ash-shahid, that's the place of the shahid from the hadith. So regarding concerning what this hadith, it shows regarding that istihada nullifies one wudu, and what is to be done in that case for a woman who's experiencing such a situation is for her to perform wudu for each salat, and we'll discuss that further in detail, inshallah. So that's concerning this hadith, that the hadith here that we'll be discussing regarding al-istihada, that the general meaning of the hadith. We'll discuss concerning takhrij of the hadith, that before going to with Bukhari rahimahullah, the additional wording of hadith, it mentioned Bukhari ثم تودعي لكل صلاة وأشار مسلم إلى أنه حذفها عمدا, that Imam Muslim rahimahullah, even though he mentioned this hadith, he did not mention this additional wording or sentence. Where he mentioned tawaddai, that you meaning the additional wording that is mentioned by Bukhari and not mentioned by Imam Muslim rahimahullah, that to perform wudu for each salat in the case of the woman who's going through istihada. And we said that's the shahid of the hadith, that's the main part of the hadith regarding relating to nawaqil al-wudu. So you have a discussion between the ulama of hadith, regarding concerning that this particular hadith, that with this additional wording of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. So you have a discussion between the ulama of hadith regarding this additional wording that is mentioned by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah regarding concerning, does it go back to the Prophet ﷺ, or is it a statement of a sahabi, mawquf? So on this matter, which is an awra. So on this matter, you have there mentioned that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, when he mentioned this hadith, and they mentioned that Bukhari rahimahullah mentioned وقال أبي, which is awra, ثم تودى لكل صلاة حتى يجي ذلك الوقت, that the additional wording of some would mention that the person that so as I mentioned, and قال أبي, so Abi meaning awra. So is it the statement of awra, or is it the statement of the Prophet ﷺ? Then you have that discussion between the ulama of hadith regarding that additional wording, which is the main point of the hadith, or the main section of the hadith regarding what is to be used as evidence regarding istihada requires wudu, or breaks one wudu. So you have a discussion where Sheikh that they mention also regarding this hadith, that there is a khilaf regarding awra. Is it awra ibn Zubair, or awra that is being discussed are al-Muzani. So awra al-Muzani or awra ibn Zubair. So also you have that discussion between the ulama. So I said, as for that additional wording, you find that different aqwal of the ulama, that of the ulama who have authenticated that is something, that additional wording is a wording that goes back to the Prophet ﷺ, and they have authenticated it, and others who have said otherwise, others who have said that they do not all to be authentic. Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan, in summary, he mentioned that regarding a difference between ulama is that part of the hadith, is it the statement of the Prophet ﷺ that mentioned that the woman who's in the state of istihada tawadda'i likulli salat, that she should perform wudu for each salat. Is it actually the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, or the statement of the sahabi, someone else, who was awra? So they mentioned regarding that matter that Sheikh Abdullah Al-Fawzan قال والقول بأن هذه لفظة موقوفة على عورة وأن رفعها غير محفوظ فيه وجاهة للأمور ثلاثة. So what he mentioned, that as for the statement, this discussion between the ulama, where some is of the view that this additional wording that is mentioned by Imam Bukhari is actually a statement of urwa, not the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. You have that discussion between the ulama, they mentioned it is not mahfuz, going back to the Prophet ﷺ, it's not authentic, going back to the Prophet ﷺ. But we said that's the mawdi of the shahid, that's the main point of reference in the hadith. That's the main point of reference in the hadith regarding that the woman who is going through istihada, that she should perform wudu for each salat. Or then they mention, or that it nullifies her wudu. Then they mention that those who say it is not authentic, going back to the Prophet Islam, and actually is a statement of Urwa ibn Urwa that I mentioned. He said, therefore, 3 reasons is somewhat that they have a solid reason behind this. They mentioned that one, أن هذا هو ظاهر سنع البخاري لأن الإشام روى الحديث عن أبيه فقط. We mentioned that as for what is mentioned by Bukhari rahimahullah, that the hadith can somewhat mean أبيه, which go back to Urwa, indicating that the hadith does not go back to the Prophet Islam. And Imam Bukhari rahimahullah wanted to make that difference between what was the statement of the Prophet Islam and what was said by others. So Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, that from his you have mentioned the hadith in the Sahih, that you want to make that distinction, that difference between what was said by the Prophet Islam, by mentioning the Prophet Islam statement, then I mention hadith and abihi, indicating that this statement is not going back to the Prophet Islam, but rather going back to someone else who's Urwa, as mentioned. So that's concerning, so indicates the hadith it is mawquf, that part of the hadith is mawquf, not marfu'. Then they mention also, second reason, أن أئمة الكبار حكموا بأنها غير محفوظ. They find that many of the أئمة الكبار, that also that they have ruled that that additional statement mentioned by Bukhari, that is not mahfuz, going back to the Prophet Islam, but rather the statement of Urwa. And I mentioned amongst those, Imam Muslim. As they mentioned that Imam Muslim rahimahullah intentionally did not mention that sentence when he mentioned the hadith. So Imam Muslim rahimahullah, he mentioned that hadith and Aisha, as mentioned, I mentioned muttafaqun alayh, but that statement or that additional sentence, he did not mention it. He intentionally left it out, indicating that he didn't deem it to be mahfuz, authentic, going back to the Prophet Islam. Also An-Nasa'i wal-Bayhaqi, and also Ibn Rajab rahimahullah qal وصواب أن اللفظ الوضوء مدرج في الحديث من قول عروة. So Imam Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, that also he have mentioned regarding concerning that this statement in the book, in his explanation of in his Fathul Bari of Ibn Rajab, he kind of saw when he discussed the hadith, and discussed the hadith in many pages. So Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, when he discussed this hadith in his explanation of Sahih Bukhari, known as Fathul Bari, he did so in many pages. So he went into a lengthy discussion regarding this hadith, but he kind of somewhat came to the conclusion that this section of the hadith is not the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, but something was placed in the hadith, mudraj. He considered to be mudraj, and rather it is a statement of Urwa, that I've said that, same we mentioned, and Isham and Habihi, who is Isham ibn Urwa, and his father was Urwa. When also we found some narration mentioned, قال إشام أو ركان ليس على مستحاضة إلا أن تغتسل الغسل واحد. That he mentioned that it is not upon the lady who is going to istihada إلا أن تغتسل غسلا واحد, except for her to perform one ghusl once, ثم توضأ بعد ذلك لكل صلاة, and for her to make wudu for each salah. So that's the view taken by Urwa, and it is captured there. The third reason why I said a hadith, regarding this hadith, why I believe that the, Sheikh Abdullah Fawzan is more inclined towards that that additional wording of that mentioned by Bukhari is not that of the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, but of Urwa. I mentioned وأن هذا حديث رواه عن هشام بد عشرة رجل, that over 10 plus narrators have narrated upon Hisham, ومنهم أئمة الحفاظ, and amongst them of the great scholars of hadith. And I mentioned, and all of them did not mention that additional wording except for this narration, except for one amongst them. So they mentioned that, so that narrator, he went against, most did not mention this additional statement, except for one. So based upon this, which is going back to Urwa, that they see it as not a part of the hadith, that no one mentioned. So they mentioned that this is indicated in the hadith, it is not actually a statement of the Prophet ﷺ, but rather a statement of one of the Sa'ada of Urwa. So you have those reasons. So he went against everyone else. He went against everyone else by including this in his hadith, where everyone else did not mention over 10 plus narrators. So he shows regarding that of those matters, show concerning that that additional narrator, he went against Imam Malik, who didn't narrate it, Waqi', Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan, so many who have narrated this hadith without this additional wording. So, except for so they mention that except for the narration of Isham and his father, that included this. So with this discussion, I said there's a lengthy discussion regarding this hadith, or that additional wording as to whether it is authentic going back to the Prophet of Islam, or authentic going back to mawquf and going back to Urwa. So that's concerning that discussion regarding, but we said it plays an important factor in knowing if it is the statement of the Prophet of Islam or not, as that's the shahid from the hadith. So that's the main part of the hadith that is used regarding that the woman who's in a state of istihada, then she should perform wudu for each salah. For each salat, she has to perform wudu. So that's concerned that there's the shahid from the hadith. So as for other things that can be taken, extracted from the hadith, of the benefit of some of the explanation of Bulugh Maram, and amongst them that of San'ani, Subul Salam, San'ani rahimullah, when he mentioned the hadith, then he will kind of somewhat explain certain things. So can I somewhat give you a general explanation of a breakdown of the hadith as to what it meant. So he mentioned that an Aisha قالت جاءت فاطمة بنت أبي حبيش. So they mentioned regarding concerning that she's al-Fatima. So al-Fatima, she's al-Fatima Qurashi al-Asadiyya. Nam, and she's Zawj Abdullah ibn Habsh. Abdullah ibn Jash. So she's the wife of Abdullah ibn Jash. So that's concerning that they mentioned that of the lady who was experiencing istihada, and they mentioned regarding istihada, it's that type of blood discharge, which is a blood discharge that a woman experiences that is outside or normal menstrual cycle. So excess or continuous bleeding by a female, which is a form of blood discharge that comes in addition to her normal menstrual cycle. So that's concerning. So that's concerning what is said to be istihada or istihada. That is said to be istihada. So it is something that some female might experience, where they have bleeding outside their normal menstrual cycle. So what's the ruling regarding this? So it says concern. So what is to be done when they experience such discharge? When they experience such discharge, so what to be done in that course, in that situation? So it mentioned that so the Prophet ﷺ kind of somewhat told her what to be done and explained regarding that what she's experiencing is something which is irq, which is that she have a blood vessel that is broken, or that is causing this blood causing this discharge, this discharge. So she's going through some type of blood vessel that's somewhat been damaged, and she's having this discharge, which is not from her normal menstrual cycle, but an illness that she's experiencing, but as haid, and to be discussed further with its own separate part, that's a natural blood discharge that most female experience after puberty, or the part of their puberty, and it goes for a certain time, then it will stop, and we'll discuss those discuss those ahkam later. But in general, they have this discharge, which is haid, but also some ladies or some female experience additional discharge, which is called istihada. So as to what to be done in that case, then this hadith, it explains certain things to be done in this case, even though again it is discussed as a separate discussion with the ahkam that relates to al-hayd wal nifas. So from this hadith, as for the ahkam that can be taken from the hadith, so I mentioned the Prophet ﷺ said to her that it's not your normal discharge that you have regarding your cycle, that what to be done, that you are not to leave away, not to abandon your salat, you should still pray when you have this discharge. If it is menstrual cycle, then you don't pray, but if it's this type of blood, then you continue your salat, you continue your salat. So as for the ahkam that can be taken from this, that discussing regarding concerning in the case regarding al-istihada, so the matter regarding istihada, then what to be done? Is it mujib lil wudu, that a woman who's experiencing istihada, is she to perform al-wudu? So is of those things that nullify her wudu. So if the woman who's experienced this continuous blood discharge, is she to perform wudu? Does it nullify her wudu or not? With this, you have aqwal of the ulama. So you have the ulama that divide into aqwal. The first of those views that the ulama have taken, of the ulama who have taken a position, yajib ala mustahada. It is compulsory upon a lady who is going through istihada that discharge wudu likulli salah. That she to perform wudu for each salat. So for every salat, she perform her wudu. And that's madhab of jumhur. So jumhur of the ulama, they have this position. Also they mention is the position taken by Aisha, and also the position taken by Ibn Abbas, and also Ali ibn Abi Talib. So among the Sahaba who have taken this position with jumhur of the ulama who came after them, from among the Sahaba, al-Mu'mineen Aisha, Ali ibn Abbas, anhum, that is of the view that the woman who is experiencing istihada, then she should perform wudu for each salat. So with this, they see it as something which nullify wudu. And of jumhur of the ulama, the fuqaha, that they mentioned, Abu Hanifa, Imam Ahmed, Imam Shafi, Abi Thur, Abu Ubaid, and others, who have the opinion that it is a must, wajib, yajib, that she should perform wudu for each salah. And the evidence that they use is hadith like this. So the hadith that they use is the hadith regarding of the hadith that have been mentioned. So the additional wording of Imam Bukhari that they mention, that's the evidence that is used regarding that she was instructed to perform wudu for each salah. Then those of Jumhur, who's of this position, then also that they agree in principle or on the ruling that she's perform wudu for each salah. But in the tafsil, in the details of this, they have a slight difference. So that difference, Imam Shafi rahimullah and Ahmed rahimullah, they have the opinion that إلى أنها توضأ لكل فريدة, that she perform wudu for every compulsory salah. So before each compulsory salat, she perform al-wudu. ثم تصلي بها الوضوء ما شاءت من النوافل. So for each compulsory, so Imam Shafi and Imam Ahmed rahimullah, that states that it is compulsory for her to perform wudu. How for her to carry this out? For each salah, each compulsory salat, she has to perform wudu. So it goes back to each salah. That is compulsory. She perform wudu, and then she's allowed to perform, and she can pray also nawafil salat with these compulsory salat. So that's concerned the view of Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, and also Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah is a position that أنها توضأ لدخول وقت كل صلاة. So Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, his position is that that the woman who is going through istihada, that continuous blood flow, that is not her menstrual cycle, that what is to be done by her is that for each salat, when the time comes in, she perform wudu and pray. And also that she can pray any other salat with it, compulsory and non-compulsory salat. But she does so when the time comes. Well, the time coming. So for example, with Imam Malik, or with Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmed, and Abu Hanifa, that Imam Shafi and Ahmed, all that with each salat. So when she wants to pray for each salat that is compulsory, she perform wudu. With Abu Hanifa, he factor in regarding dukhul al-waqt, the time that the salat comes in. So you have they mention different regarding, for example, with Fajr, perform with Ahmed wa Shafi, she does it for Fajr. With Abu Hanifa, when the time of Fajr comes in, she prays. And we know that Salatul Fajr, it goes to a certain time, then it comes, when the sun completely sets or comes rise, then it ends. And then you have between then and Dhuhr. So in between that time, that is a time where the Imam Shafi or Imam Abu Hanifa, that I mentioned that she would not per se need to perform wudu. She wait until Dhuhr comes in, the time of Dhuhr comes in, for her to perform a Dhuhr. And also with those view that, for example, if they are making al-jam, combined between Dhuhr and Asr, then with Imam Shafi and Imam Ahmed, then if she's making, the person making al-jam between Dhuhr and Asr, then she perform wudu for Dhuhr, then after wudu again for asr, because they see it for each salat. They see that she performed wudu for every compulsory salat. So even though she's combining, so she'll perform dhuhr, then after go and perform wudu again and perform asr, because they see that wudu for mustahada for each salat, each compulsory salat. As for Abu Hanifa, then if the time comes in for, she's delaying, for example, she's delaying her salat of dhuhr and asr in the time of asr, she perform wudu in the time of asr and pray dhuhr and asr with one wudu. So that's the difference between the madhab, the two madhab. As for the second, that's the position taken by those who say it is wajib. They refer, and that's those who say it is wajib. The second view of the ulama is that mustahadha yastahab lil mustahadha al wudu li kulli salah la yajib alayha. That is not compulsory. They see it as something which is mustahab for the woman who's experiencing this type of istihada, continuous blood discharge flow, for her to perform. That is not her menstrual cycle. For her to, it is not compulsory for her to perform wudu for each salat, but it's something which is mustahab. If she hasn't done anything else that nullifies wudu. So if she hasn't done anything else that nullifies wudu, if she's just in this state, then it is something which is mustahab for her to renew her wudu or to perform wudu, not wajib. So for example, that she perform wudu for dhuhr, and she did not do anything of the normal acts that would nullify a wudu. She didn't pass wind, she didn't go and urinate or defecate. She's still in her tahara. So that view, she can pray asr because she hasn't done anything to nullify her wudu, and even if she chooses to renew her wudu, it is something which is mustahab, not wajib. So that's the second view. That's the second view, it is mustahab. And the reason why they have come to that conclusion, because they say the hadith, and they mention that the hadith that discuss this matter, it is weak. It's not the same. The Prophet ﷺ, as we discussed regarding that additional wording or sentence mentioned by Imam Bukhari, that as we mentioned of the ulama all, it is not something of the Prophet. The Prophet ﷺ said those words. Actually, it is Urwa who said those words, not the Prophet ﷺ. So that it is not same to the Prophet ﷺ. So it is not compulsory for her to perform wudu for each salah or with istihada. And that's the view that is taken by Imam Malik. Also they mention Al-Rabi', Ikrama, Ayub and others. So of those who mentioned it is mustahab for the mustahada to perform wudu if she has not done anything else that, or she hasn't done fall into anything that nullifies her wudu, it becomes mustahab for her to do so for each salat, but not wajib. And that's the view taken by Imam Malik and others. Al-Fatwa of Ibn Uthaymeen and Shaykh bin Baz is that Allahu Alam, from what I can recall, that they are more inclined towards they are more in line with the qawl of Jumhur. That they are more in line with the qawl of Jumhur. Also you find that Ash-Shawkani, so you find that Ibn Uthaymeen and Shaykh bin Baz, that they are more in line with the qawl of Jumhur, the ulama, which is that to perform wudu for the mustahada for each salah and wajib. As for the likes of Shawkani, that is more inclined towards, and maybe Ibn Taymiyyah, but Shawkani more inclined towards the view of, and also Ibn Taymiyyah, from what I can recall, that more in line toward the view of Malik, Imam Malik rahimahullah, which is mustahab, not wajib. And there's a third view on this matter. يجب على مستحاضة اغتسال لكل صلاة مفروضة. So the third opinion take the position regarding mustahada. It is compulsory upon a mustahada to اغتسال لكل صلاة مفروضة, for her to perform a ghusl for each compulsory salat. ثم then تتوضأ لكل صلاة, then also for her to perform salat wudu for each salah. فريضة كانت أو نافلة, whether it is a compulsory salat or not. And that code is the code of Ibn Hazm. So Ibn Hazm al-Zahiri, he kind of somewhat is of the position that for the mustahada, يجب على مستحاضة اغتسال لكل صلاة مفروضة, for her to perform ghusl for every compulsory salat, then after perform wudu. So it's required for her to do two things, al-ghusl wal-wudu. And that qawl I mentioned, there's no evidence for this at all. There's no evidence regarding this matter. There's no evidence, and that's against qawl of jumhur of the ulama. And the position taken by Ibn Hazm that makes it compulsory for her to do ghusl and wudu. As for what is the qawl, it is a qawl rajih. Then I go back to, if one owes, then I mentioned that it is min bab al-ahwat, it is preferable and safer regarding that for a woman in the istihad to perform wudu li kulli salah. So that is the safer approach, that for each salah, that the woman in a state of istihada perform wudu, as they see as is a form of discharge coming from the private parts and a form of blood discharge. So based upon that, she perform wudu for each salah. So it becomes of a nullify of wudu. And it is based upon also the view of the ulama who are concerned that any discharge that comes from the private parts, the back or the front, anything that goes out from there, it nullifies wudu. So that's a view that is taken by many of the ulama, that any discharge from the private parts from the front, that any discharge, that it automatically nullifies one wudu, whether it is something which is of the norm or thing which is abnormal. So that's concerning. So that's that method is ahwat. It is the safer approach. But the qawl, that the second view of Imam Malik and those that is also a very strong view. It's a very strong view. Allahu alam, that view is very strong based upon looking at hadith. That we have discussed that hadith in length, or to some degree, not in detail, full detail, but to some degree. From this, the next matter that comes from this is the matter which is the matter discovered by the ulama regarding that they place regarding that al-istihadha, where it's a continuous discharge, blood discharge from a female. It is not a normal cycle, a part of her cycle. They said no, this is qiyas upon what they mentioned. Or said no, this also what also included in this. Those people may have an illness where they're either having a continuous discharge of either wind or urine and the likes. They call it selsatul bawl. So the person have a continuous discharge of either of wind, always continue passing of wind out of their will. It just occurs on its own accord because of maybe an illness with them or some reason for why this is occurring. Or the person might have continuous discharge of urine. So a person continues having discharge of urine, maybe in small amount, but it's continuous. It's there. What's the ruling regarding this? So just as the ulama, this a difference between the ulama regarding al-istihadha and two main madha'ib, that those who say it is wajib, that the person will perform wudu for each salah. They say the same will apply regarding the person have a continuous discharge regarding urine or wind. So the person needs to perform wudu for each salah, and that's qawl of jumhur of the ulama. And also you find a qawl of Imam Malik of others who hold that that's not the case. It is something which is mustahab, unless the person have done something which would be of the normal stuff that nullify wudu. And that's the view taken by Ustadh even of some of the ulama, of them Malik rahimahullah and others. And so those are the views that are there regarding those matters regarding that ahkam that can be taken. So from the hadith, they take of the benefit from the hadith, that they show concern from the hadith, it shows regarding that one, that ithbat wuqu' istihadha, that it shows that this does occur and can occur, regarding that some female may experience additional or have discharge that is not from their normal menstrual cycle, continuous discharge of blood discharge, and that's to say, that it does occur. And the ulama mentioned regarding concern that, like it's an istihadha that occurred in the time of the Prophet Islam, and I mentioned that around 10 female was known for this. So you find that different I mentioned around 10 female were known to be of those women concerning mustahadhat, those women who experience this type of additional discharge. That is not the mentions that I mentioned of those Fatima bin Abi Hubaysh, as I mentioned this hadith, also Zainab bint Sisan, the daughters of Hubaysh, which is or they mentioned Fatima, they mentioned also Zainab bint al-Jash, Habiba bint Jash, حمنة زوج طلحة, أسماء سهلة بنت سهيل, سلمة المؤمنين, Sauda المؤمنين, also Habiba bint Abi Sufyan, Badia bint Ghailan. So these are of those women who are mentioned to be of those women during the time of the Prophet ﷺ that they experienced concerning istihada. So they mentioned around 10 female who are known for this. Ibn Hajar rahimullah and others have mentioned these, that there are 10 that are said to be known. So those ones were known. Those who were known. So it showed that it occurred then, and then that it still occurs today regarding some female may experience this. So after ahkam they mention it does occur, but to know that it doesn't, so it does occur, assistive experiencing this, then what to be done in that case? That they still pray. So when their menstrual cycle comes to an end, they'll perform their ghusl, but they'll still pray for each salat, as mentioned, ahwat, for them to perform wudu. But if they choose not to perform wudu, if they haven't fallen into anything else that nullify wudu, then Allahu alam, their salat is still valid. But ahwat, better for them to perform al wudu, to take themselves out of the khilaf between the ulama, and they're taking a safer path. Also those women, they will pray. They also perform siyam. They are allowed to perform siyam with a nafila or wajibah. Also they can have intimacy with their husband. So the rule that applies to them is that the rule that applies to a normal woman, even though she's going through discharge. So even when she's praying and she's still having that discharge, or salat is still valid because she performed wudu before. So even though she's praying and she may feel some discharge, then her wudu is still her salat is still intact according to her, as mentioned. So they show concern the taysir of Islam regarding those cases, the taysir of Islam regarding those cases, and also that person not leaving salat completely. That person not leaving salat completely. So there's a taysir, some ease for them, an exception regarding that they pray, even though they may still go into another person also who maybe have that problem regarding al-wind, and a person who have that problem regarding urine, that they still pray because it's an illness that they have, the illness that they have. Also, they mention regarding concern that it shows that from the hadith, that of the benefit of the hadith, that al-hayd is of those things that stop the person from performing wudu, or stop the person from performing as-salah. And also the person performing hayd will stop the person. There's no need for the person who's in a state of hayd, menstrual cycle, they would leave salah. They will leave salat, and they do not make up those salat after. As for siyam, that lady who's going through her menstrual cycle, that she will make up the days that are missed regarding her compulsory fast of Ramadan. So those compulsory fast of Ramadan, if she was to miss any because of her menstrual cycle, then those are to be made up after. As for salat, they are not to be made up. As for salat, they are not to be made up. So I mentioned that they mentioned regarding that would be discussing the bab of al-istihada. We also a discussion between the ulama, they all regarding that. Of some female, we discussed maybe but some female regarding they are unable to make a distinction regarding al-istihada wal-hayd. So of those who may have this additional blood discharge, but some of them I find it difficult to make a distinction between, is it my normal cycle or her cycle, or is this other than her cycle? But she's having a continuous flow of this blood, but she's unable to make a distinction. Is this my cycle, a part of my cycle, or not a part of my cycle? So they mentioned that the ulama mentioned two things that she take into consideration to make a distinction. One, tamiz ad-dam. So kind of somewhat to make a distinction regarding or tamiz as-sifat ad-dam. So as you look at what is her normal cycle, that blood of her menstrual cycle, its thickness is color of the factors and the time that it will normally comes. So our normal cycle, if you have a normal cycle before, she go that normal time period that she will have her menstrual cycle. Also, the type of blood description will be used is thickness, the color, the thickness of the color, the odor at times. Also, with some female concerned, that they'll go through different pains and cramps during their normal cycle. So they can somewhat take into consideration these type of things regarding our cycle. So after the thing they mentioned is going back to the sifated dam. Make a distinction regarding that menstrual cycle may have a certain description, and the istihada may be lighter in color, thinner. The blood flow is not as thick, maybe thinner. So they're using those factors. So it's used as the blood to make a distinction between both those two bloods. Another distinction they mention al-ada. If she's unable by way of the blood, she uses her ada, is another way they mention, where if her cycle used to come at a certain time of the month, then she owed to that time. So if her normal cycle will be the middle of the month for 5 days, then she owed to that routine that she normally have. Anything that is above or beyond that, then it is counted as something else, as istihada. So of the other way, of the ulama mentioned, if you have an ada, if you have a normal cycle, or normal cycle will be used, either hers, if you cannot distinguish hers, use her family member, or mother, or sisters, or auntie. So that normal time that they will have there, that she'll have her cycle would be the one that she will stick with. And whatever exceeds this, then you consider to be istihada. So if you have a normal cycle of 5 days, at this time of the week, of this time of the month, she'll go with that and use that system. So that's concerning, but ulama, rahimahullah, they discuss that more concerning Babal al-Haid wal Nifas. So that's concerning of those matters that is discussed regarding this particular hadith, regarding the hakam relating to al-mustahadha, that this charge is considered to be of those things that nullify one wudu or not. We discussed that there's a khilaf between the ulama on this based upon certain narration of the hadith that they disagree or they differ regarding that it going back as a statement of the Prophet ﷺ or not. And that statement or that wording, that sentence is the main wording that distinguish whether istihada requires wudu or not. So that inshallah ta'ala will end this discussion and continue regarding other masail relating to nawaqil wudu as mentioned by as stated by this hadith mentioned by Ibn Hajar rahimahullah in his book Bulugh al-Maram من أدلة الأحكام وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذه السبيل والآخر والحمد لله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته سبحانك اللهم استغفرك واتوب إليك